Hello everyone, thank you for checking out my channel, and for today's video, I'm gonna teach you everything about the logical function. Okay, so before that, I'd like you to watch the previous video regarding the numeric function, texts, and date functions before you proceed with the logical function. And of course, kindly watch also the basics of Microsoft Excel and the introduction to Excel formulas and functions. Okay? So now, since you're already here, I hope that you already seen the previous video. Okay? So now, introducing the logical operation. So the logical operations are equal, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. And these are their symbols. Okay? So, tandaan lang natin yung mga symbols ng mga logical operations natin. This symbol ay kagaya lang po ng plus, minus, multiplication, and division. In where the multiplication represented by the asterisk, and in this logical operation naman, the not equal to is represented by two logical arrows. Okay? And tandaan natin to. Now, logical operations or logical functions is a test of two arguments. Two or more arguments actually. Now, let's identify first, or let's define first what is the use of and or function. Okay? Now, let's proceed with the and or function. Now, we have here the logical tests 1, logical test 2, and the result. Same as today's. Actually, the logical operations are used to output true or false. Okay? Kung the numeric function outputs a numeric data and the text function is a text data, while the logical operations or logical functions outputs either true or false. Yun lang yung output niya. Okay? Now, to test po the end function, ito yun. The end function, how do we write end function? So, just type end, then parenthesis, and we have here different parameters. So, our parameters would be logical tests that outputs either true or false. Okay? So, dalawang bagay lang yan. Now, if we input a logical test which is true and a logical test which is true, then our output would be true. Okay? If we input logical test true and logical test false, then we will have an output false. So if we input a logical test 1 false and a logical test 2 true, then we will have a false. And if we have a logical tests that are both false, then we will have a false output. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, to conclude po, with the presence of false, the output will always be false in the end function. Okay? If we have one false logical test here, automatically our output would be false. So this one is both true and this one is false. So the output would be false. Okay? So with the presence of false, the output will always be false in the end function, which is not true about the OR function. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, if we compare two arguments here in the OR function, its output is not the same with the end function. So, let's say OR function. Of course, we are requiring to put or to input parameters, which is the logical test 1 and logical test number 2. So both are true, then the output would be true. So let's try with another input. If this is our logical test 1 and logical test 2, true or false, the output would be true. Then to cut it short, yan. Only the output false when the logical tests are both false. Okay? So to conclude this OR function, with the presence of true, the output of this argument will always be true. Okay? While the end function, with the presence of false, the output is always false. In the OR function, once one of the argument is true, the output will always be true. Okay? Okay. Now, let's proceed with the actual data. Okay, actually we have here a lot of data, a lot of text function, a lot of logical functions. We have an AND function, OR function, if function, and we also have NOT function. So let's add one here, NOT function. Okay. Now, let's proceed with the normal argument. Okay, we have here data. We have 50 that is located to E15, 40 to in F15, 10, and 25. Okay, let's put a normal argument. Okay, so let's try this one. Actually, sabi ko sa inyo kanina, the output of logical tests will just either true or false. Okay, so let's try this one. 50 is greater than 40. Is it true or false? So let's see. 50, and we use logical operation which is greater than 40, and hit enter. It's true, right? So how about 40 less than 25? Is it true or false? It is false because 40 is greater than 25. Do you get the output? So it is either true or false. Okay, so how about this symbol? So this symbol represents not equal to. Okay, so let's try. Is 10 not equal to 25? Is it true or false? Of course it is true because they are not equal. But if we change this into equal sign, then the output would be false because 10 is not equal to 25. Okay, so as simple as that. Now, if we don't want to use this argument and we have to compare more than one argument, now let us use the AND and OR function. Okay, so dito na papasok si AND and OR function. Now, proceed tayo sa AND function. So our first logical data would be this one. Let's say 50 is greater than 40 and 40 is less than 25. So, isusulat lang, type lang natin siya dito. Is 50 is greater than 40. This is our first logical tests or an argument, comma, which is we have to insert the second argument, which is 40 is less than 25. 25. So, ibig sabihin, one of the input is true and one of the output is false. So, with the use of AND function, as we discussed here sa taas, with the presence of false, the output will always be false. So, we are expecting that the result of this function would be false. And we get it. It's false. Okay? Now, how about if both arguments are true? So let's try this one. And of course, this outputs true. Yan. And the second argument would be this one. 10 is not equal to 25. So this logical operation here, or logical tests here, outputs true, which is same lang dito. And the logical tests number 2 outputs true. Okay? So as you can see po, we can identify that we have two logical tests, because our logical test is separated with a comma. So there are only two logical tests. So if we hit enter, the output is true, because yung rule natin dito, if both logical tests are true, then the output will always be true. But if one of the argument is false, then the output will always be false. Okay? So that's the end function. How about the OR function? Let's say OR, then let's use the same data. Okay? 50 is greater than 40, which is true. And this one naman, 40 it's 15. 40 is less than 25. So one of the inputs or parameters is true. So as we discussed here, if one input is true, then the output will always be true. So let's see. Alright, we get it. One output is true, the other output is false. So OR function yung ginamit natin, of course, the output will always be true. So that's how the OR function works. Now, let's proceed with this one, the if function. Or before we proceed with the if function, let's proceed with the not function. Actually, the function of this not function is to invert or reciprocate the output. So if the output is true, then the not function will invert it and may result to false. Okay, so let's try it. If this is our input, then okay, let's use the not function. The not function requires only one logical operation or one logical test. Okay, so if this is our input or parameter, then the output will false. If our parameter is false, then the output of this not function is true. So ibig sabihin, yung kabaliktaran lang po ng input natin, yun yung output ng non function. Basic. Okay? So let's proceed with the if function. Okay? This is something that is complicated. Okay? Now, let's use if function. Okay. Under the if function, it requires three parameters. First parameter is a logical test. The second parameter is the value if true. And the third parameter is the value if false. So, as I have said a while ago, in the logical function, there are either true or false output. So, kung ayaw natin, if we don't want the true and false output, then we have to use if function. Alright? So, let's see how the if function works. Now, first parameter is a logical test. Let's say this one. Now, if 50 is greater than 40, so this will be our logical test, comma, then proceed tayo to our second parameter, the value if true. So what if this logical test is true? what would be our output? Okay, so in this case, I want to output congrats. Okay, so comma, then this would be our third parameter, and our third parameter is a value, a value if this statement is false. Okay, so enclose it with the quotation, and I want to output sorry instead of false. Okay, now let's go back. The if function is used if you don't want to output either true or false, if you want to output something else. Okay, so there are three parameters required. First parameter is the logical tests, and the second parameter is the value if this logical test is true, and the third parameter if the logical test is false, then this parameter is the output. Okay, so let's see if this works. Click enter, and that's it. We have congrats because this logical test is true as stated here. So meaning we have to output this one, the congrats word, because the value is true. Okay, what if we change this logical operation? We turn it to not equal to or to equal to. Okay, is E15 is equal to F15? No, it is not equal. So our expected output would be sorry. Let's see if it is work. It's work. Yes, the output is sorry. So meaning this second parameter is the output if the value is true, and the third parameter is the output if this argument is false. And with that, we use if function to eliminate the output true or false, but replace it with something that we want to see. Okay, which is the congrats and sorry. Okay, and that's the use of function. So that's it for the logical function, and I hope you've learned something today. Okay, thank you so much, and bye bye. Bless up.